So we start with questions, or do you?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
I told these guys that I'm only gonna ask questions about Shemp and the Three Stooges.
Oh,
I'm
excellent.
not gonna ask any other questions.
That's one near and dear to my heart. I was just talking about that last night because we shot in Australia.
Yeah, yeah, Mel Gibson produced that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's like that parts of Sydney and the coastline there that looks like Malibu and L.A. back in the day. In fact, I was talking with Kent McCord, and he was talking about how he had been in Australia. He said he couldn't believe how much it looked like, that part of LA back in the day, and the beach areas and the small little areas that were cropping up, outside the city there. But they even had old vaudeville house where we could shoot our vaudeville stuff. But we shot that. Literally flew the day after the millennium kicked off in Sydney. That's January, February, March for them is their summer. So it was, great to be in Sydney Harbor. Literally I looked out my apartment building that they gave me. It was an awesome apartment. Just there's the Opera House. Had a lot of time off on, the QE2s parked out in the harbor, part of the time, and that kind of thing. So that was kind of fun. But what a great opportunity to play a character, that I grew up with. And I mean, as kids, we always loved Curly because he was so childlike. But Shemp was always the one that made me laugh the most. He was always just kind of, he went to such odd places. He was such a strange, neurotic guy. We had access to family members and that kind of thing, which was kind of cool. And obviously Michael Chiklis was very good at as playing Curly, and and Evan did a great job, and so did Paul. So we were the only actors they brought over from the U.S., and they had a great group of Australian and New Zealand actors playing the other parts. And we just had a great time bringing those characters to life. About halfway through shooting, ABC liked the footage so much they were talking about releasing it as a feature film. And I think Mel and the other producers were leery of that, because normally if you're going to produce a feature film, they want to be able to market it with, some stars or some history or something. So they were afraid that it would, be released and not the amount of people that would see it that they expected to see it as a TV movie, which, that's kind of gone to the wayside a lot, except on Lifetime and those kind of channels. There, I used to love those like certain movies, especially some of the biopics. But that was based on a book that was the only authorized biography of the Three Stooges at the time. I don't know if there's more now, but so it was great to have that as our template. And I don't know if you know not William Frawley, not from Lucy, Jim Frawley, who was our director. James Frawley, directed the Muppet movie and a bunch of other interesting stuff. He had started out as a Broadway actor back in the day, so he had a real sense of the performer side of these characters, as well as the intimate, personalities of the characters. So it was a lot of fun. I originally auditioned for Curly. People have seen pictures of me. I mean, not Curly. I'm sorry, Larry. I'm losing my brain. It's early for me. Hi, how are you? And I had all that curly hair, and they go, oh, you make a great Larry. I could whine with the best of them. So I came in and they were like, we got a couple of good choices for Larry, and we can't find our Shemp, and we just think that you'd be great. Would you do a little thing for us? So I got a stringy wig, and it wasn't a very good one, so I put on a cap, with the hair hanging down, and I came in with my best Shemp. And I came in and I, brought the humanity that I thought that the character would have. Did a little research, found out he was kind of a neurotic guy. He was afraid to sleep in hotels because he hated bed bugs. He was afraid of the animals. So we'd have them put up like sheets of glass. They didn't have plexiglass back then, so they put glass between him and the animals because he was, you couldn't see it on camera, but it, made him more comfortable. And, he was an interesting guy. But it was funny because all the women on the set were like, oh, like Shemp's kind of like the sexy stooge. I was like, never really thought of him that way. I guess I didn't have the pockmarked face for it, but I was like, I'll take that. I'll take that.
You had some great, I love the dichotomy of you in the boxing scene.
Mm,
And you have the whole scene where the comedy, and then right afterwards, the tomato ketchup line where
right.
you just get, you can see that
Just a
torment
little
underneath.
yeah, just a little piece of his not really wanting to be there, and the years of being smacked around by Ted Healy, and a lot of people don't know that Shemp was, he and Mo were the original Stooges prior to the Stooges that we know, because those Stooges, are what we saw on television, which of course were originally two reelers. Those movies were. They had always hoped to break into the main features the way that Abbott and Costello were, and the Stooges' agent was like friends with Harry Cohn, so he was like working over at 20th Century as well. So they were kind of like, he was like, no, we'll be the blue plate special. He would put him even in the front of our bad movies. That way, everybody will come at least see the Stooges and stay for the bad movie. So. They weren't by any stretch of the imagination poor, or, although Larry did have a reputation for spending all his money at the track, women and that kind of thing. I don't think he ever owned a home, but, Mo and Shemp and, I mean, they put their families together, and they had, their families and that kind of thing, but they never really felt like they had that opportunity. Of course, once they didn't have residuals back then. So once the movies went to television, they didn't see a dime of it. I think they sold like the whole library to CBS or one of the new TV stations for like $12 million, which was a huge amount of money back then. And they didn't see a dime of it, but it launched, a second career for them, being able to go out on the road and perform live for people in their hometowns, which is kind of the way that music is done these days. It's like, because everybody lifts music, and the way that music is available to everybody, they don't make so much money on their recordings anymore. So it's just a setup for them to charge a lot of money to go, tour and do music. So conventions have kind of become that for us too. Some of the older shows, some of the stuff like Tales from the Crypt, which wind up on Sci-Fi Network and these kind of things, they don't have a lot of residual base to them, because the licensing fees aren't that high. But it's fun to be able to come and see the fans face to face. People are like, well, you don't spend a lot of time on social media. I go, no, I go see the fans. I go spend time with them. I perform for them. I have fun. To me, I come from the theater, and I come from doing stand-up. So to me, that's the way to do it. I really enjoy doing that, yeah.
You have a lot of detail, around the Three Stooges. Do you approach every project you do like that? You really get into the research?
I love the research part of it. Of course, back in the day, you used to have to go to the library or something. Now, of course, I can, Siri, how tall was Shemp? It's like, that kind of thing. So things have changed dramatically, and I love that about, I use the computer more for that kind of thing than anything else. Finding out about different people. You don't always get to play historical characters. So, and as you get older, they expect you to put more of your own habits and your own kind of personality into your on-camera roles, just because you are more of a character actor. When I was a younger actor, I found myself playing all kinds of wacky characters, but I probably didn't really know myself as well. So I didn't know how to plug as much of myself, or I didn't believe that I was interesting enough. It's like, oh, I'll make the guy honk, and I'll make the guy, skip when he walks. I'll do that kind of stuff because that's what I grew up with. Watching the Three Stooges. Obviously, guys like the Coen brothers watched the Three Stooges and had a really good time too. Is there another topic we want to cover before we, Stooges is a great place to go. I don't get asked about it a lot.
Ask you about
Yeah.
your process when it comes to your voice acting. What is your personal problem?
It's, it changes up, because sometimes you not only get a script, sometimes you don't get a script even. When I went in an audition to play Miko the raccoon, they're like, come on in, John. I was like, well, I haven't seen the copy. They go, there's no copy. It was a huge room full of storyboards. So we just went around the room, bringing to life the little storyboards of me. And I live in an area where there's a bunch of raccoons and stuff. So I'm like, okay, here's a raccoon, fighting. Here's them fucking. I'm doing like the whole thing, and they're laughing, and I'm like, I've either offended the shit out of them, and I'm not, I think that they had given me the job. I didn't know about it for like 6 months, and my agents, nobody told me that I got the part. And they called and they go, well, you're going to start doing the sessions for Pocahontas. I was like, what? I got it? They go, yeah, got it like months ago. I was like, nobody told me, so that was kind of fun. And obviously, I was just bringing life experience to that. But sometimes you have very specific scripts. You have very specific, you get to see what it looks like. Like for the Crypt Keeper, when I auditioned for the Crypt Keeper, it was in Kevin Yeager's studio, and he was working on the puppet. So the texture and everything that I brought to that character was partially based on what I saw and partially based on the fact that I grew up with the comic books. And I think some of the other actors had no idea what they were auditioning for. They're looking at it going, be careful what you ask for. You may get it. They go, this is terrible. I was like, no, this is Shakespeare to this guy. He loves it, So, ultimately, when you're doing the comic edge of stuff, you're bringing your own comedy to it. I mean, the Crypt Keeper definitely has, my comic timing to it, and that's what I brought to it. But the physical aspects of it are what I had to bring to the character. The beauty of playing voiceover stuff is that I'm not typed out by my age, my race, my physical sense, or even whether I'm human or not, obviously. Doing Pete's Dragon and playing Elliot was not easy, but they thought of me when I came in just because they knew that I did that kind of thing. So each one has to be approached differently, but it's a lot of fun. I get to use skill set that I don't get to use on camera. Of course, the on-camera stuff, I get to use a skill set that I don't get to use off-camera, which is my physicality and my ability to do that kind of thing. But it's a real pleasure because of that. So each one is a whole different thing. I'll get a dozen things to audition for during the week, and you're guessing. The one good thing about these days auditioning is that you get things sent to your home and you record them at home. The one bad thing is you don't have their input right there. To go, this is going to feel more live action, even though it's funny, that kind of thing. Like I went in to do Rick and Morty to play Blim Blam, and these guys were really specific about what they wanted. Obviously, they make fun of movies and stuff like that, so they had it really concretely in their mind. And then sometimes it's just you're bringing to it what's not on the page, and that's what I like to think my specialty is bringing to something what's not on the page.
Do you have a specific medium that you prefer, whether you're doing the video games or doing the animation?
As far as voiceover?
Yeah.
Well, the animated films are a lot of fun because a lot of times you're in a room with a bunch of people and we're all like picking different voices to do. Like, working for Illumination, we do a lot of additional voices, which is a lot of fun. And people step up and do their version of it, then I step up and do my version of it. But ultimately, doing a cartoon series like Cat Dog or something, you have a room full of some of the best voice talent, and we're just cracking each other up the entire time. And that's just a good time, It's a good time.
You kind of freaked out Kevin Yeager originally, didn't you? When you saw it, you did a laugh and you thought, oh man.
No, he was like going like this, like I didn't know whether he was like, like he wasn't getting the sound because he was doing it on a boom box or something, but he was like loving it. And so he was like laughing, but not laughing out loud. And I started laughing, and I was like, oh, it's great. The guy laughs at his own jokes. This is great. The Crypt Keeper laughs at his own jokes. And I just built it from there. And when it happened in the room the next day, he had me doing it for Joel Silver and Dick Donner in their office, which are two of the biggest movie producers ever. And I was just like, hi, guys, and I did it for them. And they were like, okay, we'll see you on the set. And it was that easy. And sometimes it works that way. Thank you guys very much. These were great questions. I appreciate it. Do we have to be somewhere? Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know. He was going, Anyway, I'll entertain one more question. How's that? Unless everybody got what they needed.
We can do pictures real quick before we leave. How about that?
Excellent.
Do you have a favorite character that you've played as far as voice or live action?
Oh boy. Well, I mean, obviously, playing Chimp in the Three Stooges was an awesome one. The Crypt Keeper. The ones that stand out are the ones that I had a great time doing. I love playing Ralph in Reefer Madness. I mean, that was just more fun than I could ever say. You know, I got to do that from a small theater in LA to off-Broadway, where we opened 5 days after September 11th, which was not a good experience, but it was a bonding experience for all of us. And then getting to do the movie as well with a great cast. You know, we had 3 months up in Vancouver, you know, shooting and partying and having a good time. You know, it was really, really fun. You don't get to do that stuff much. I mean, I've done a lot of stage roles that that most people have never got to see because they were on stage and you only got to do them live. Three Guys Naked from the Waist Down was the show that launched my career. I played a stand-up comic with Scott Bakula and a guy named Jerry Colker who wrote the piece. And I played a very dark, suicidal comedian that wound up launching my career because Star Search saw me doing the show, and they said, "We'd like you to, you know, be on Star Search." It was the first season of Star Search. I'm like, "As what? A singer?" They're like, "No, as a stand-up comic." I said, "Well, I'm not really a stand-up comic." And they're like, "Well, you can win $100,000. I'm like, "Fuck it. Have you heard about my stand-up that I'm doing?" And, you know, and I beat Rosie O'Donnell in the semifinals. And stuff. But I kept winning, so I kept having to come up with new stuff. You know, so I would do like The Wizard of Oz in 2 minutes and this kind of stuff. And this is what really started people knowing that I did voices. So it really kind of launched my voiceover career in a way. So I have to say that may be like the premier part that I got to play, you know. It's the thing that took me from off Broadway and street performing to mainstream television and stand-up comedy and launching me from a, you know, starving theater actor to, you know, living in a normal house.
Didn't you do some improv with Robin Williams?
I did. You know, when I used to work at the Improv, anytime Robin could just would just come in and jump up on stage and, "Hey, I'm going up. You want to come up?" You know, and I was like, he'd never invited me before, but he was kind of cutting in where my spot was, you know. And Rick Overton, who some of you guys might know is a brilliant comedian, he's like, "Come on, Johnny, let's go up," you know. And so we went up, and the first night that I went up on stage with him, and he cut into my act when he was street performing in front of the Metropolitan Museum years before, although he wouldn't have known me at all then. You know, I was in whiteface. I used to street perform in front of the Metropolitan Museum in New York, but I got up on stage, and you have to pretty much had to go in, you know, Robin's vapor. You had to continue in wherever he was going. But we're, you know, Rick and I were, you know, used to keeping our own, had a good time. Then all of a sudden, like, Charles Flesher jumped on stage, you know, and he started playing the harmonica. He really wasn't like it. And then Bruce Willis jumped up on stage, and it wasn't his thing really. It kind of went, kind of sucked the air out of it. I didn't say that. Yes, I did. But no, he was great. He was a lot of fun to play. But Robin was, I mean, you know, he was, you know, somebody who was so well read and so intelligent, and so he could bring all that. You were always afraid to do your act. I mean, my act was very different than other comedians' acts, but I was afraid to do it in front of Robin because he was probably the only guy who could steal it, you know. But I don't think he ever tried to steal it. I think he just grabbed from wherever it was, you know. We all respected him a lot. He was, you know, the first time I saw Robin Williams on TV, I was like, that guy just took my career. Yeah, because that's what I had imagined myself being, that guy that's just like, you know, the new vaudevillian, you know. And but it was guys like Robin and guys like Bill Irwin and people like that that opened the door for me at that time to do the kind of comedy that I love doing. So, you know, I had a lot of gratitude towards those guys. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.